Last year I was sitting at a desk as a sales manager, and now I'm official McLaren F1 simulator test driver.
So there's 1.4 behind.
This opportunity is huge.
That's it, 46.1.
That's faster than the factory McLaren driver, and he's done 6 laps.
In 2009 in the United Kingdom, the BBC picked up coverage of Formula 1 again and brought back Fleetwood Mac's The Train in an intro piece they appropriately called The Scream of Science. Well, the scream is back, as it's time to unleash these 740 horsepower V8 Williams FW31 cars which competed in the 2009 Formula 1 World Championship once again here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hello everyone and welcome to Silverstone for round one of a batteries not included championship. I'm Samuel Ryman and alongside me in the booth is Johan Vandenveld. Behind the scenes doing all of the button pushing for the season is our director Sean Ambrose, and he is using camera sets provided by Dudley Beard. Johan, for us Williams FW31 is like a long lost friend you haven't seen in a while, and so perhaps it's quite appropriate that the opening round of the season takes place at a track that every Grand Prix driver is very familiar with here at Silverstone.
Exactly, I cannot think of a better track to start a Formula 1 season than the circuit at which the sport was born in 1950, Silverstone. Now this place breathes Formula 1 and has some deep historical roots. The story of the track is quite well known. It used to be a Royal Air Force bomber station during the Second World War, and after the war Silverstone hosted the British Grand Prix in 1948 for the first time. It has done ever since 52 times. Now a little bit of trivia, the first race ever at Silverstone was not a British Grand Prix, it was dubbed the Mutton Grand Prix. After the Second World War the track was deserted and a group of friends decided to do an impromptu race in 1947. The drivers sneaked onto the airfield with their cars and had a spontaneous race event, but during the race one of the drivers hit a sheep that happened to walk on the track. The animal was killed, the car was total loss, but the race received a special name to forever remember that sheep. Now, even though the drivers today use an older version of Silverstone, they do not have to worry about livestock wandering in front of the cars, but they do have to worry about dealing with a very fast 5.1 km long circuit and some tricky high-speed corners. Maximizing downforce will be key today, and to see how that looks like from the driver's point of view, let's hop on board our Williams FW31 with a beautiful GSRC livery for a lap around Silverstone.
Alright, we've got Clayton McLeod in the GSRC Williams, so let's do a lap around Silverstone. Coming down to Copse, there's no brakes involved here, just a lift, point it to the apex, and power through. From there, you don't need to pull it all the way across to set up for the Maggots-Beckett sequence like you do in most cars. You can keep it flat easily up into the third apex where you gotta start blowing the car up. The one thing that stays the same in the F1 car though is the importance of lining up the run onto the hanger straight. Not carrying your speed onto this long stretch will put you at a severe disadvantage and might just cause your opponent to try and overtake you into stow. But despite the heavy braking, this is still a wide, sweeping corner. The rise will make it tough, but get back on the throttle as soon as you know the car will stick. Then there's the braking for Vale. On occasion, surprise attacks work into here. What's important is keeping from overcooking the entry into Club. Even though it's paved all the way around the outside, there is definitely a faster line by tucking it in tight to the curb. After that, you're quickly approaching the Abbey Chicane, where you're likely to see pass attempts as well. Keep in mind that the second apex is more open than the first, so a good exit will make a big difference. It's foot to the floor all through bridge, and then your last good chance for a pass is in the braking for Priory. This begins the slow technical section of the lap, where it's mostly single-file racing. The transition from Brooklands to Luffield might see some variety in lines as drivers suss out this back and forth. But whatever they do, giving yourself a clear shot off the hairpin is the most ideal way to wrap things up. No lifting through Woodcote, and then hopefully you've now finished a lap around Silverstone.
Well, that's a track, and there you see on screen the car. Let's talk about the drivers. Normally, to introduce the drivers, we would pull up our championship standings, but of course they're all starting on naught. So everyone's even. Everyone's got just as good a chance of winning this championship as the driver they'll be starting alongside on the grid, Johan. So let's take a look at what these drivers are going to have to compete with here today.
Yeah, exactly. Well, as the viewers probably know, this is round one of the batteries not included championship. Round one of a 12-round championship. You see 4 watermarks behind it. That means that there are 4 drop weeks, so the 4 worst results of each driver will be removed from the championship. The race today at Silverstone will be 39 laps, or in other words 200 kilometers. about 2/3 of the way a normal Formula 1 race goes. The setups will be open, so that means that the drivers can tweak it just so they like, and they drive with a 67% fuel limit. That means that every driver has to make one stop, but they do have room to basically wiggle around a little bit in that. They can do a short first stop, they can split it even, so we see some different strategies with that. There's no incident cap, people have to not abuse that of course, but they can go off track freely, and the points are the official iRacing points.
Yeah, and let's emphasize that this is not an official iRacing series, but they're going to calculate how many points iRacing would award each driver based off of the strength of field that is out there. Now, we've got 19 drivers out here for the season opener, and I'm sure all of them have a diverse background. You know, some of these drivers are a bit more familiar with this car than others. Right now, Joseph Fabian definitely proving to be quite familiar with this car, as the number 10 currently sits on provisional pole, qualifying underway here at Silverstone.
Very good lap time so far from the Australian-New Zealand driver. He's the only one who put in a 1:19 so far, 1:19.969 as his quickest lap time. He's just currently going towards Stowe for his, I think, third time lap. Yeah, that will be his third time lap. But good, exactly like you say, Sam, good lap time from him so far. He is around 0.5 of a second in front of Clayton McLeod, who currently sits in P2. Clayton McLeod, of course, one of the organizer of the Batteries Not Included Championship, and also the winner of the series a few seasons back, multiple winner of the championship. So I expect a good battle between these two drivers.
So you see the clock ticking down in the top left corner of your screen, just 3 minutes left of qualifying. There'll be a bit of extra time tacked on to that once the clock hits 0 for drivers to finish up the lap times that they are on. As you just mentioned, Johan, now provisional front row is Joseph Fabian and Clayton McLeod. Now, even though you're seeing a variety of different paint schemes out there, these are all the 2009 Williams Toyota FW31 cars out on the track. Not all of them look like Williamses though. We've got Ferraris out there, some Jordans out there, tons of retro. We even got a Braun being run out there in the number 1 car, Adam Tremolowski behind the wheel of that machine, and currently he's sitting 4th on the provisional grid.
Yeah, I'm probably thinking like the Braun won the championship in 2009. Maybe if I use that livery, that will help me a little bit. Well, it's helping him so far with that P4 position. It's actually quite close between him and Jakub Karcevic, who's currently in P5. Jakub driving Toro Rosso livery. Very beautiful one at that as well. Only less than 1/10 of a second between the two, so very close in that battle for P4 and P5.
Now, as we're watching him go around the track right now, let's give you an update on our weather conditions. It's a fairly nice day in England. Very, very rare indeed. Maybe that's why we see a few drivers spinning out around club here during this qualifying session. A very difficult turn to get right. But 87 degrees Fahrenheit, rather cool track temperature as far as iRacing is concerned. And that means, Johan, we'll probably only see one stop. I know we were talking about fuel just a moment ago. These drivers, I mean, they can always do a 2-stop if they want, but when we're only talking about 2/3 of the length of a Grand Prix distance, you're probably just going to want to do one.
Exactly. I don't think that any of the drivers, unless some disaster will happen to them, as we see Jacob ending his qualifying run there. Unless some disaster strikes, then that's probably the point that they will go for 2 pit stops. If that doesn't happen, I will be very, very surprised if someone manages to pull off a 2 pit stop strategy.
We were just watching Clayton McLeod work his way around the circuit. Now we're riding on board Ian Ashton, the number 20. Actually, this is a 20th driver who just joined the session not too long ago, so it'll be interesting seeing where he can go on the board, considering he hadn't put on the qualifying time. And I can tell you McLeod has spun, and that will pretty much lock up pole position for Joseph Fabian.
Just a quick, we're still on board with several drivers: Jerry Furkop, Ken Soska, Larry Krupp and Alejandro Del Campo, they've all opted to not set a qualifying time. Maybe they just want to start the race that they're a little bit on the back of the grid or maybe in the pits. So if Ian Ash actually put on a qualifying time, he goes to P6. Good lap time from him so far.
Yeah, nice lap by him. Kevin Colshay coming around the final turn right now. He was in 10th. The lap he was on didn't count, so that probably means he put a wheel off somewhere. Reed Miller also about to come out the final turn. He's in 13th. He comes into the pits. What about Adam in that Brawn? He was 4th. He crosses the line. He improves a tiny bit, but remains in 4th position.
Yeah, very tiny bit. Only less than 200ths of a second. Philip Blake coming over the start-finish line at the moment. He's currently in P7, 21.9. Doesn't go quicker. Sets a 22.0. Stays P7.
Johnny Bell will be the next driver, and I believe the only driver left to try and improve his time. Now, we saw Johnny Bell here on the GSRC not too long ago when we were covering the official iRacing Grand Prix series. He was out there competing in that, so has a lot of experience with these high downforce Formula One cars. That being said, only 14th on the grid right now, working his way through the final turn, and he's going to abort the lap and start 14th. So let's go ahead and read out your full grid as Bell does a practice start there in pit entry. Joseph Fabian will be starting from pole position. A nice half a second lead over Clayton McLeod there back in second. Tommy Inhola will be starting in 3rd place ahead of Adam Chmielewski in 4th position. Or even when we get back to 4th, Adam's over a second back of our pole sitter. That shows you just how quick Joseph is. Jacob Karsowicz back there in 5th place, lined up alongside the Ian Ash. We were riding on board when he put that lap on. Philip Blake will be starting from 7th alongside Michael Overbay, and Dave Peterson and Kevin Colshay will round out the top 10.
The double 1 position goes to Sam Winton, who manages a 1:22.4, just 200ths of a second behind Kevin. And he has to start just outside of the top 10. Stefan Henkel starts the race next to him in P12. Reed Miller brings home a 23.3 and starts the race in 13th position. He shares row 7 with Johnny Bell. David Laycock is one of the drivers in row 8 with a 25.8. He starts the race in 15th place, and he starts in front of Jim Ray. And then there were 4 drivers, like we mentioned, that didn't set a qualifying time. Alejandro Del Campo starts the race in 17th. He starts in front of Jerry Furkol. And on the last row, it's Larry Krupp and Ken Shoska.
We still race on the classic configuration of a Silverstone course here on iRacing, although the new modern day F1 course is not too far along, but it might be appropriate for these 2009 F1 cars. All 20 are gridded up on the starting line, and Joseph Fabian about to lead them away for 39 laps of racing action. The lights off and away they go. Horrible launch by both drivers on the front row. Unhola capitalizes, and he moves from 3rd to 1st by the time they get to turn 1.
Amazing start from Unhola in the back. Adam Chmielewski also had a great start, goes from P4 to P3. Horrible start from Clayton McLeod. He drops 2 positions, he's now P4. He's under heavy pressure by Jakub Krasiewski behind him.
So McLeod back to 4th, and Adam Chmielewski is up into 3rd place. Joseph Fabian, he's been blinking a little bit, I think. It could be struggling with some connection issues there. Maybe that's one of the reasons why he didn't get a great start. But a massive props to the number 9 of Tommy Mikel Unhola to make the most of that bad start from the 2 drivers in front of him. He has the lead. Can he hold on to it?
Yeah, no, SMP6. That's
one spinner in club. That's Philip Blake. First victim in club.
Very easy to do that. We saw that a lot in practice. A lot of cars having difficulty with that. He doesn't have any damage, so he can continue. But there's a lot of lost track position for Philip Blake, who had a great qualifying in P7. Up front of the field, it's still that battle. It gets ever closer between Mika Unhola and Joseph Fabian behind him. Unhola had a great start, robbed Joseph Fabian and Clayton McLeod of that front row, but the Ferrari colored car is currently in P1.
And the other Ferrari-coloured car, not teammates, of course. They just both chose to run a bit of a retro Ferrari paint schemes. But the other Ferrari-coloured
oh, sorry. Jacob Karsovic has spun. That is in Woodcut, I think. There was our P5 driver at that point coming out of Luffield. It was. He just lost it, getting the power down. And that's a long time that he has to wait for the whole field to go by.
Yeah, tyres, of course, very cold in the early laps here. Well, Joseph Fabian was very close to the back of Unhola as they came around to complete the end of the first lap. But when they get out to the Hannah Straight here, Unhola able to pull away. Remember, these being 2009 F1 cars, no DRS for these drivers. They go through it the hard way and there's contact for second. Riding on board, Adam Chumlewski, his front wing got into the back a little bit of Joseph Fabian under braking in Vale, but I don't see damage to either car. They might have both got away with it.
Yeah, lucky for both of the drivers, because damage on lap 39, man, that will hurt you for 37 laps running. That's not something you want at this point of the race. It's very good to see Tommy Miko Unhola in first place. He's being put under pressure by Joseph Fabian, but the Finnish driver is keeping a calm head, of course, in that Ferrari-colored car, staying in front of them for now. Just a quick update to Jakob Karsovic. He fell down all the way down the order. He's currently in 20th position. We can go to a bookmark incident of his spin at the end of the previous lap. He was just on the exit of Luffield. We go to a replay of that now. He had a good run so far. He was putting some pressure on Clayton McLeod, ENS behind him. A little bit further, you can see him here. Cars right behind him. Of course, like you said, Sam, it's so difficult to get the power down with these cold tires that will completely hurt you. And if you're just a little bit too greedy, you just loop it around, as happened here with Jacob.
And as we rejoin live action, we'll go back up front. Nothing has changed here. But boy, it's still as intense as what it was as when we left, because Unhola has not been able to break away. And if Fabian's gonna make a move, Johan, he's got to do it quickly, because I'm sure this isn't good for his tyres running in the dirty air like that.
Absolutely not. This is not what you want, especially if you're the quickest car on track. You want to be in front, and you want to extend the gap, especially with the opportunity of a pit stop soon, because I don't think this is something that Joseph Fabian had in his mind when this race started. He was on pole position. He was half a second in front of P2, almost a second in front of P3. So you're in the mindset that you probably will have a good start and you will just drive away from the rest of the field. And if you're suddenly stuck behind the car, that's just your whole strategy to shambles. At the moment, he's not able to follow Tommy through the Meckers and Beckett section as well. Adam Gniewski is also getting a little bit closer. He's still blinking a little bit for me, that won't help him out there. This is probably one of the best overtaking spots here towards Stowe. Look at it, he's just too far away to try and move. He's setting a little bit on the inside. A little bit naughty, there was not really a gap there. Tommy Miko Unhola cuts him off and he stays in P1.
Yeah, it seems what you're saying there, that the dirty air through Maggots and Beckett's is really upsetting the front end of Joseph Fabian's car. And oh boy, Adam! Very slow out of club, and Clayton McLeod had to take to the grass to avoid him.
Joseph Fabian tried a move there. That was, I think, going in towards Abbey. Tried a move there, was cut off. Has to stay behind him for now, but maybe we can go back a little bit, give the spotlight to Alejandro Del Campo. He's currently in P9. Great race from the driver so far. The Iberian driver who started without a qualifying time in P17, currently in P9.
Yeah, definitely not impossible to make a pass around here, as Alejandro has been able to prove. And Fabian was thinking about sending one down into Cop's corner. And once again, watch what happens here. Fabian is able to get right up on the gearbox of Tommy Unhola as they work their way through Maggots and Beckett's, but then he's just not able to... He doesn't have a flow that Unhola does, and that's because he doesn't have a fresh air that Unhola does. And once they come out here to the Hannah Straight, sure, he has a slipstream, but he's lost all that time in Maggots and Beckett's, and in fact, he's got to worry about a challenge from behind here.
Yeah, Adam Gniewski tries around the outside, doesn't make a stick, tries the up and under, now on the outside once again. If he breaks later, he has the inside next. Oh, he tries to cut back, breaks extremely late. Tires lock up and he has to go through the grass. Oh, that loses him a lot of time. Adam tried it, sunded on the inside, but now has to immediately defend from Clayton McLeod, who's behind him, going towards Abbey. This is maybe an overtaking spot if Clayton tries to overtaking maneuver, but he doesn't try it. Good move from the UK&I driver, didn't make a stick, however.
And let's also give a shout out to Ian Nash, who started 6th. He's picked off a 5th position from Dave Peterson, Dave Peterson started 9th, and he's up to 6th. That's right, it was Jacob Castlewicks who started in 5th position, who of course is all the way back in 17th after his early spin. So that's where Ian Nash was able to get that 5th place from, and he's kind of just hanging out there, the tail end of this podium battle right now. But what all that mess did last lap is it's taken the pressure off from behind Joseph Fabian, and now he can worry solely about just trying to challenge Unhola from this lead and not have to worry about as much what's going on in his mirrors.
Exactly, Sam. He can just look forward now with no pressure from behind. Just look forward and try to force Tommy Mika and Hola in a mistake. Because you were mentioning it, that every time that Joseph tries to make a move in turn 1, you can see Tommy going wide through turn 1. He loses momentum every time that Joseph takes a look. And he might just be continuing to try that, to use that extra momentum that he has compared to Tommy to try and move going into the Mackett's and Beckett section. Currently now going through Abbey. Under bridge, still under a blanket, the two of them, and Adam Grimevsky is just falling down the wayside. Clayton McLeod isn't able to keep up with the UK&I driver, so Clayton McLeod is falling away from the podium a little bit. But it seems like P3 is falling a little bit away as well.
Yeah, falling a little bits away, but staying somewhat within contact of the top 2, who are very close together now as they come around to complete lap 6. In fact, this could be Fabian's best opportunity yet. It's very hard to make a pass on the outside, won't get low, but he's going to go for it. Didn't pay off.
Didn't make a stick. Yeah, he blinked a little bit away from me, so it was difficult to see. Did he make it? Did he not make it? He had a great exit out of left field. Almost did it. Couldn't make it stick. P7 is a great battle at the moment as well. That's Alejandro da Campo, who just overtook Dave Peterson. Man, Alejandro da Campo is on a warpath from P17 to P7 at the moment. Spanish or Portuguese drivers making up giant leaps forward. He currently also overtook Michael A. Overbay, so I think he's P6 even. Michael A. Overbay is currently overtaken by Kevin Kolsje.
Yeah, I think what's kicked all this action off here, actually, Johan, is Overbay had a big off coming around to complete lap number 6, and that kind of shuffled everyone up behind him. It's taken Overbay a few turns to recover, and that's why we're seeing a lot of action going on right now. And up front, there was a challenge for the lead, but once again, Fabian not able to make it stick.
Oh, but look at that. Look at Adam. He's extremely close. This is 4 cars under a blanket at the moment. Tommy and Hola is holding it up like a truly train. But it's a truly train for P1 and Tommy train for P1 because Joseph Fabian is looking left and right and he cannot make a stick. And this is probably the point where it seems like Joseph is the strongest every time around in the run towards turn 1. Once again, he stays there. He's able to get the apex, while Tommy isn't able to do so. And Adam behind him. He's getting overtaken by Clayton McLeod. It's Clayton McLeod to a podium position.
Yeah, Adam went off exiting cops, and that cost him the momentum that he needed to defend that position. So here they go, down the Hannah Straight. Once again, no DRS. He got to pass the hard way. Top 2 break away from the drivers, challenging in 3rd and 4th. Fabian, he's driving in there too hard. I think that's the problem. He's driving into Stowe too hard. Maybe he needs to think about backing the entry of that turn down and trying to make a pass stick and Vale instead.
Philip Blake overtaking Michael A. Overbay in the midfield. Michael A. Overbay, who made another mistake, falling down even further down the field. Currently now outside of the top 10, but going back towards the battle up front. Joseph Fabian once again taking a look on the inside of Abbey. That's something that's almost getting a routine now. I'm getting real deja vu feelings seeing him dive onto the inside. Oh, they touch! They touch! He tried to move on the inside there. And Tommy, Mika and Hola get spun around.
Unhola gets back going again. We'll get a replay of this. Unhola gets back going in 5th. I'm looking at the front end of Fabian's car. He doesn't have any front wing damage, but I am sure Unhola is not going to be pleased about that one. Almost reminiscent of Damon Hill's move on Michael Schumacher here in 1995.
It seemed like big netcode from my PC as well. Tommy, who falls down all the way to P5. Just behind ENS. He's quite a bit in front of Alejandro Campo, and I hope that the Finnish driver doesn't suffer any damage, because this was a great race so far from Tommy.
So this will allow Joseph Fabian to break away a little bit. Now, of course, we've been keeping an eye on all these drivers up front, so let's go back a bit further in the field, because there's been a good amount of action back throughout the race. Overbay, we've documented his struggles recently. Well, now he's got Stephen Henkel and Kevin Colshay right behind him, and in fact, Henkel taking it. It's almost like Overbay has damage. Something's not right there.
Exactly. He was quite quick in qualifying, Michael, and he's just not able to make it work in race pace. He's falling down the wayside even more. He's currently P13. Very slow here out of club as well. Yeah, getting overtaken immediately by Jakub Kersovic. That's 3 positions lost in the span of 4 or 5 corners. We see a pit stop of Ken Soska. That's one of the drivers in the back of the field. He was already 1 lap down, the P20 driver, and he's the first one to make a pit stop.
Something happened to Joseph Fabian just a couple turns ago. He has lost the lead and dropped back to 3rd place. Adam Chmielewski now in the lead of this event, ahead of Clayton McLeod.
Sorry, yeah, exactly. That was in Abbey. In Abbey, he just went over the curb zone a little bit too hard, went on the throttle a little bit too greedily, and just looped it around. Now both drivers that were fighting for the P1 position, both Joseph and Tommy, have fallen away now. Only one of them still in the podium position. It's Adam and Clayton now fighting for the win.
Yeah, and the only reason Adam is leading this race is actually from a mistake by Clayton not too long ago, where and you see even Adam having difficulty getting the rear power down. I wonder if this is an indication. We've seen a lot of mistakes in the last couple of laps. 8 laps, these rear tyres may start to be going off.
Exactly. Oh, Michael Overbay just had a pit stop and he almost lost his car in the Maggots and Backers section. I think Michael Overbay had some front wing damage, and with the pit stop he might have repaired it to get a clean car for his second part of the race.
So there we go, and now you see a new fastest lap of a race on the top of your screen from Joseph Fabian in 3rd place. It's 5 seconds back of our 2 leaders right now. Meanwhile, things are a little bit close on track for Dave Peterson and Reed Miller, handing out here in 8th and 9th. Haven't mentioned Reed Miller yet today. He's up 4 positions from where he started.
The black car just in front of them, Sam Winton as well. It's a battle for P7. Philip Blake behind him in P10, not that far away as well. Close battle between these 3 drivers. None of them have made a pit stop so far. Reed Miller probably the happiest one out of the bunch, starting in P13, currently in P9.
So, approaching a 3rd race distance, this means scheduled pit stops could be coming up for our leaders if they elect a short pit early on. As a battle for 8th rages on between Peterson and Miller, but Peterson able to hold on. To give you a quick rundown of the top 10 here, it's Adam Chmielewski leading the race by less than a second over Clayton McLeod. Those 2 have never been too far away throughout the race. In 3rd position is Joseph Fabian, trying to recover from his mistake. He's running quick laps out there right now. Tommy Unhola is back up in the 4th. Ian Ash rounding out the top 5, having one of the quieter races so far. 6th place is Alejandro Del Campo, and you mentioned earlier, Johan, he did not set a qualifying time. He has really been carving his way up through the field, and he's ahead of these other drivers we've been keeping an eye on recently. Sam Winton, Dave Peterson, Reed Miller and Philip Blake rounding out the top 10. Remember, all of these drivers will get points at the end of a race. It's all based on iRacing's official point scoring system. Even though it's not an iRacing official series race, they're going to use the strength of field to calculate the points.
Just outside of top 10 for P11, Kevin Colson and Jacob Kursiewicz. Jacob is trying to find his way back towards the field, and he's actually doing so, getting that P11 back. Great run through Magazine Beckett section, a lot better than Kevin had, and he can immediately make that overstake in Stowe.
And let's make sure we emphasize the point that all these drivers will need to pit for fuel. Refueling was still an option in the 2009 Formula 1 season, so it's not like these tyres are going to go off now and you're not going to have to deal with tyre wear throughout the rest of the race. No, all these drivers probably started with a fairly light fuel load, you know, if they're thinking of making an early stop or splitting it down the middle, and they're going to have to deal with rather heavy fuel load when they come back out of the pits again.
Exactly, that's not an easy thing to suddenly go from an extremely light car to quite a considerably heavier car and get used to that change immediately. But it's also something that you can play with. If you see, for example, that you're stuck, Silverstone is a very difficult track to overtake on, I always feel. So actually winning a few positions with a good pit strategy might help you down the long road. So sometimes it actually might be a good idea to go earlier to make a pit stop, drive maybe around a little bit with a higher fuel load, but because of that you can do the undercut and you can overtake some people. We're still looking at a battle at the moment from Reed Miller and Dave Peterson. Heavy battle between these two for several laps so far. It's also Philip Lake just behind them. Just go up to the battle for P1. It's still going on. Adam Shimevsky and Clayton McLeod still very close. The Braun car and the Ferrari car for P1.
Yeah, and even though Clayton seems quite content right now to run behind Adam, he can't stay that way forever. He's either got to play the strategy card and come in the pits, because otherwise Joseph Fabian is coming in a hurry behind both of them, and this could become a three-car battle very easily again.
Exactly, and that's maybe something that Clayton has to think about. Are you confident that you can make that overtake stick on track, or are you gonna play the strategy game and try to overtake him? Around 10 seconds in front of them is the second car that will be lapped. It's Michael A. Overbay, who's currently P19. Maybe you can try something with the traffic and force an overtake like that. It's not the first time we've seen something like that happen in Formula 1. So there's a lot of options for Clayton McLeod, who of course is an old champion in the batteries not included championship. So if someone knows what is a good strategy, a good tactic to get a P1 position, it should be him.
Yeah, you do bring up another good point here, is that these drivers, these leaders, will start catching lap traffic in the not too distant future. Ken Zoska has already gone a lap down. He's been struggling to come to grips with the circuit in the number 07. Michael A. Overbay currently the last car on the lead lap. David Laycock, they might actually be able to get by because he's bringing his Jordan liveried number 11 machine into the pits right now.
Heavy battle on screen we see going on from Dave Peterson and Reed Miller. That's the battle for P8, but the two cars on either side of them, Sam Winton in P7 and Philip Lake on P10, are not excluded as well. This is a heavy four-car battle for the P7 position. Sam Winton in the black and grey car in front of them having a slow exit through Lovett. That means... Ooh, and I hear that Stephen Henkel has a problem.
Yeah, he was in 12th place. He just had to spin. I think he was able to keep off the wall, although it got fairly close.
Yeah, too close to comfort there, but Stephen Henkel did keep it out of the wall, no damage for him. And that means that the German driver can continue in his way, driving a little bit slowly now, just checking if his car still feels okay. Losing some positions, yeah, that's what he was 30 seconds behind the leader. Now he's 44 seconds behind the leader. It's almost 15 seconds that Stefan lost there.
We mentioned that David Laycock, one of the drivers who was running around towards the tail end, just came into the pits. But he came right out of the pits, right in the heart of that four-way battle we've been keeping an eye on for 7th place. The driver who really got the worst end of that was Philip Blake. He's dropped back a little bit from the drivers in 7th, 8th and 9th. He'll have some catching up to do back there in 10th place.
Just maybe put some emphasis on Joseph Fabian, who's in P3 at the moment, because a few laps ago we were looking at him. He was around 3 seconds away from Adam Chimevsky in P1. At the moment, it's just 1.6 seconds. He is making up incredible amounts of time and just biting his way forward to that battle for P1. But we have seen how difficult overtaking is. So I think that even Tommy Mika Onhola, who's currently 4.5 seconds behind the leader. Oh, I see the car going wide there. There's Michael over going wide in the S's. But even Tommy Mika Onhola will be able to just bring down the gap towards the leaders because he's so much quicker than Adam and Clayton at the moment.
Yeah, and we're quickly approaching the halfway point of this race. I almost wonder if Clayton McLeod might think about pitting this lap so that he doesn't have to worry about pressure from behind. Maybe he'll be able to use a bit of strategy, leapfrog Adam in the pits here. They're coming around to complete lap 16 of 39.
You see Philip Blake exiting the pits there. That's the first driver, I think, from the top 10 opting in to make a pit stop. Well, it's in lap 16, of course. So that means that he has 23 laps to go, slightly before the halfway mark. But with that, he will try to make an undercut and overtake the people, Reed, Dave and Sam in front of him to advance himself towards P7.
That was a lap car of Jerry Forkolf, you saw off track there. And here we go for the second position. He came, he saw, and now he's not going to conquer just yet. Joseph Fabian being held at bay in third place.
Oh, and Adam Gilevsky is loving this because look at the amount of track position he immediately gained after that overtaking position. Clayton McLeod fending off Joseph Fabian so far, and he has a good run through the Meckert and Beckett section. Big gap towards him, but this is great news for Adam, who can probably drive away and consolidate his P1 position now. And also Tommy Mika Onhola will be lovely to see this, because if Clayton and Joseph start fighting, he will be able to catch up to them very quickly.
Yeah, this is why I don't know what his fuel strategy is, but I'm almost thinking Clayton should have pit last lap around so he wouldn't have to deal with this, because if he does have to deal with this much more, it's just going to be costing him time to Adam.
But the thing is that is almost what I would say to Joseph. Is Joseph, if I were you, make that pit stop now, because it's so difficult to overtake the people on track like that. Make your pit stop, you are around a second quicker than Adam at the moment. So you'll be able to basically gain the track position and leapfrog them with your pit stop. Big battle for P8 at the moment.
Now our leader comes in.
Yeah, Adam Gilevsky is making his pit stop. Where we look at the battle between Reed Miller and Dave Peterson, very close. And it has been a battle that we've seen all race so long between Reed and Dave. Very excited between them. No overtake yet from Dave though. He still has to stare at the black and yellow rear of his car. But as you see here, Adam Gilevsky coming to a stop in his pits, going up the jacks, getting some new tires, getting a little bit of fuel. And he's away.
And this allows the battle to rage on for the lead now between Clayton McLeod and Joseph Fabian. But much like Fabian was having difficulty passing the Ferrari of Unhola early on, he's not able to get by McLeod as easily either. And if these two worry about each other too much, not only are they going to lose time to Tommy Unhola, who is now only about a couple seconds behind them, but they're going to be losing time to Adam Chmielewski, who has came into the pits and most likely should be able to go to the end.
Yeah, but the thing for Adam Gilevsky at the moment is he comes out of the pits just behind Jacob Kasjevic. Jacob, of course, had a great run at the beginning of the race, spun and lost a lot of track position with that, so we know that he is a quick driver. But that is not what you want to see when you come into the pits as the leader. You make a pit stop and you come out just behind another driver, because he has to hope now that Jacob will come into the pits quickly, or he is able to overtake him so he doesn't get held back.
All three of our leaders stay out for another lap, with Clayton McLeod leading them around. 18 laps of 39 checked off here. So the big question right now is, how much will Adam get held up by Jacob? Consider the fact I'm pretty sure Jacob will still have to pit for fuel soon.
Last time around, Tommy Unhola won 0.2 of a second compared to Clayton McLeod. Lap before that, 0.3 of a second. So with only 2.7 seconds between them, and that's almost half a second per 2 laps. It's 6 laps, and he's on their tail.
And the two leaders now catching more lap traffic. Larry Krupp running in 15th position. The number 18 machine, quiet race so far. He didn't turn the lap during qualifying, so starting 19th, has moved up a few spots, but now he's got the two leaders to worry about coming up at him in a hurry.
Yeah, both good momentum or good backmark driving from Larry Crubb there, going out of the way for both of the leaders, letting them pass on the inside as they continue the battle. A quick update for the battle for P8, Reed Miller and Dave Peterson's quite a big gap between them at the moment.
And Unhola comes down into the pits on lap number 19. I'll be interested in seeing where Unhola comes out with relation to Adam, considering Adam's being held up by Jacob.
As we look at that, I mentioned Reed and Dave Peterson, the gap that is between them at the moment is because Dave Peterson had a little spin in Abbey last time around. He didn't hit the wall or anything, but he lost quite a bit of track position. Team Tommy Miko and Hola, of course, dropping down the jacks at the moment, still refueling. Now he gets underway. We see Adam Chmeski going over start-finish straight now, side by side for turn 1 now, but Adam has the momentum and he overtakes Tommy.
All right, so the same way around that they were before, but Tommy is a lot closer to Adam than what he was when this all started. It should be worth noting that it doesn't really look like Adam's getting held up by Jacob here that much, Johan, and I wonder if that's because Jacob is currently on the low fuel load, whereas Adam has it way down to the end of the race.
I think it's a combination of factors. I think it's a combination of, yes, he is on a quick lower fuel load, so that means he is quicker, but at the same time, Jacob is just a very fast driver. We saw that at the beginning of the race. He was a very fast driver that made one mistake and he just lost so much track position. So he's probably able to actually drive comparable lap times to the leaders, just lost a lot of position in the meantime, and that's why he's a little bit further down the order. In the meantime, though, Clayton McLeod is still in front of Joseph Fabian. Man, Joseph Fabian very close to the leader of the race. Where have we seen that before? Just a few tenths between him coming out of the Mackett's and Beckett section. He will have a little bit of draft here now. There won't be enough to try and move in Stowe. We'll be interested to see, Samuel, what kind of lap times Clayton is doing and how much these drivers will be held up compared to Adam and Tommy behind him. Last time around, Clayton McLeod did a 23.0. Adam Chmeski did a 23.6. So at the moment, Clayton McLeod and Joseph Fabian are actually extending their lead compared to the people who already made a pit stop.
Yeah, but Adam just received a gift, as did Tommy, in that Jacob came into the pits at the end of lap number 20, as did a couple other drivers, notably Ian Ash as well, who has been having a solid race up there in around 5th, 6th position for most of it. So our two leaders, as we come to lap 21 and 39, we're halfway now, and they stay out another lap. But I want to keep a close eye on what kind of lap times Adam's able to do now that he doesn't have the traffic of Jacob ahead of him.
Yeah, exactly, he was already he was a little bit slower than Clayton McLeod last time around, so it'll be interesting to see if he's actually able to go quicker. A P3 at the moment goes into pits as well. Alejandro Del Campo, we can actually put a little bit of fervor around him because he had a great drive so far, from P17 to a podium position when he made a pit stop. I think he will fall down the order probably to around P10.
Alright, Adam comes across the line and a 1:23.1. So still, as you mentioned, going slower than Clayton and Joseph. And this is really showing impressive for Clayton and Joseph, considering the fact that they've had heavy fuel for most of this race so far, and yet they've been able to take good care of their tyres and run solid lap times all race long. These two may be sitting pretty when this is all said and done. It would also explain perhaps, Johan, what? Oh, it's a mistake by Fabian. Maybe his tyres went a bit too far away there. It would also maybe explain why these top two got such a bad launch off of a line at the start. The drivers behind them had less fuel on board.
Yeah, we go to a replay of the incident with Joseph Fabian. Sorry, but he immediately decides to dive into the pits. And of course has hurt him, and it's so frustrating for Joseph because he arguably is the quickest car on track, but with just a little mistake like that, he will probably lose all the track position that he had gained compared to Adam and Tommy. Clayton McLeod still opts to continue his run. He's still on the replay with Joseph Fabian. and he has a good run. He just stays behind Clayton McLeod in this area of the track. He was just having a great run, just following, just keep putting him under pressure. And you can see here that blinking a little bit too much at the moment, but we can give an update that Joseph Fabian has come out of the pits just behind Adam Kuleski and just in front of Tommy Mikko and Hola. So he actually didn't manage to overtake Adam, even though he had the pace, but because of that small mistake that he had, he, well, once again is behind Adam.
Yeah, so this is showing why Clayton McLeod is a driver who has won championships in this season on multiple occasions in the past, because he may have not been leading all of his race, but as he stays out for another lap, he has competitively been up front all race long on a heavy fuel load.
I want to give a quick update to Reed Miller. Reed Miller is currently in P7 if I'm correct. He made his pit stop together with Philip Lake, Sam Winton and Dave Peterson. They of course had a really heavy battle for P7, P8 early in the race. Philip Lake is probably the happiest of the bunch. He gained 2 positions. Sam Winton lost 1 to Reed Miller, and the big loser in that one is Dave Peterson. He had that spin at one point that we didn't see on the broadcast, but he lost several positions and also quite a bit of time because of it. Clayton McLeod is of course still on track. He hasn't made his pit stop yet. Last time around he was 0.3 of a second quicker than Adam Chimewski. So he's just extending his gap at the moment. And the good thing for Clayton McLeod of course is that when he makes his pit stop he has to put in less fuel than his rivals did. So the time that he will be stationary is a lot smaller than his rivals. So that gap, well, probably will mean that he will stay in front. Joseph Fabian on screen however is trying to make a move on Adam. Looking on the inside of Stowe, we've seen him pushing, we've seen him prodding earlier in the race, but he doesn't make it stick yet. Tommy Mikko and Hola behind him. He knows what it is to have Joseph behind you. He of course was the leader of the race earlier until he had that incident with Joseph. Joseph disappearing from before a second, but he's luckily for him reappearing again. Of course you have to remember that all these 3 drivers are topped off to the end. Making it until the end of the race. They won't have to stop again, but one driver that has to make a pit stop is Clayton McLeod on screen here. Now he had a 34-second gap towards Adam Chimewski. Adam is currently going towards Luffield, but Clayton McLeod is already going, and having a good qualifying position means you can start or you make a pit stop at the exit of the pit. He's already out. Well, Adam is now going over the start-finish line. That's an incredible gap for Clayton McLeod. He has a really big gap at the moment to P2, P3, almost 10 seconds. Sorry, that's not true. That's 6 seconds of a second. But a big gap for Clayton McLeod, who is probably looking forward to consolidate his lead now.
Yeah, what an excellent played race, honestly, by Clayton. Not to get too carried away as we get a great battle for second on screen here. Joseph still with the connection issues, but Adam holding him off defensively ahead of Joseph, ahead of Tommy Unhola, right behind them. The bad news for these 3, they're all about 6-7 seconds back of our race leader who can go to the end. But yeah, boy, Clayton McLeod has just performed magic today. Knowing in the early stages that he was fueled up heavily, as long as he could keep touch with the leaders early on, not make any mistakes, that he had something in the bag late on, wouldn't have to pit for as much fuel, and that has allowed him to pull out a massive lead over this scrap, going on for second with just 14 laps to go. Boy, it's getting tight.
And just a little bit more about Clayton McLeod. That probably also explains the bad start at the end. He immediately lost a P2 position, even with P4, P5, if I remember correctly. So he lost a lot of ground at the start. Well, that explains a lot. If you have that heavy of a car, it's difficult to get away. And of course, logical that his rivals actually made a move and make it stick. Did work out for him in the end, though, because now the rivals go over the start-finish line. It's a 6.2 second gap over start-finish. That's quite a bit of time, especially if Adam and Joseph are continuing that heavy battle for P2.
Clayton leading this race, Adam second, Joseph third, Tommy fourth. Let's run down the top 10 real quick now that pit stops are through. Ian Ash is running in 5th place ahead of Alejandro, who's came from 17th to 6th. Reed Miller is in 7th. Pack's broken up a little bit from 7th on back now, with Jacob Castlewicks back up there in 8th place after his early spin. Philip Lake and Sam Winton rounding out the top 10.
And actually no retirements either at the moment. Well, now I say that David Laycock is the first retirement. He was 2 laps down driving a P18, but he has opted to retire for today. So that's the thing that we'll see from him. But in the meantime, this battle will continue for P2. The battle between Adam, Joseph and Tommy. Very close at the moment between Adam and Joseph, coming around the last corner of the field. A little bit of traffic just in front of them. That's Jim Ray, who's currently driving a P15. But Adam is being put under pressure. Joseph is 100% in the draft there. We take a look on the inside. We've seen him try it several times. He doesn't. He stays behind him, going for its Cops. For the Max and Becker section, it seems like he lost a little bit of track position, Sam.
Yeah, we've just been watching a mistake there by Sam Winton running back in 10th place. Now we catch back up to this battle for second, which is hot and heavy as they work their way into the closing laps. Down at the end of Hannah Straight here, Adam still holding on to second. And Joseph, I wonder if a blinking is appearing on his end as well, that maybe he's not able to size his competition up as well if he can't see them all the time.
The good thing is that the negativity also applies to Adam and Tommy, who are not able to predict as well where the rival is driving. And especially for Tommy, that's a big factor, because Tommy, of course, was already hit by Joseph earlier in the race. So he'll probably be thinking twice before he puts his car side by side with Joseph again. And we see the second retirement of this race as well. That's Dave Peterson. And Dave Peterson was actually driving quite well. He's driving a P11 at the moment. He had a spin going towards Club. Didn't hit the wall, but decided that was all she wrote. And he is the second retirement of today.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because Dave Peterson, as you mentioned, had a solid race going. Boy, the top 4 have really been the class of a field today. Definitely been where the most of the excitement has been. They have gapped over 10 seconds over the rest, and a bad exit out of Beckett's there by Adam. Joseph Fabian right on his rear wing is going to try and capitalise with a slipstream. Going to try and make us work on the outside as they go down, Hannah. Try and hold that line, because if he can hold that, he'll have the inside for Vale. And Joseph Fabian not gonna quite be able to pull it off.
Just not courageous enough going into...
but Adam, sideways! That'll help him.
Lose, double lose for Adam. And that loses him not 1 but 2 positions there. Great stuff of holding that car in a reasonably straight line, not smashing into his rivals there. Let's go to a replay of that incident, of course. There was a great move on the outside of Stowe by Joseph. You can see it here, once loose, second time loose. See the hands working. And that's all she wrote. Both rivals just streaming by on the outside. And there goes all the defensive work, the hard defensive work that Adam has done so far.
And with 11 laps left to go, Clayton McLeod leads ahead of Joseph Fabian. The first time that those two have been in that order, basically since they crossed the start line at the very start of a race, and then it changed by the time they got to turn number 1. So here's the question. Joseph Fabian, 5 seconds back of Clayton. Let's not forget, he was half a second quicker than him in qualifying. Does he have that kind of pace for the final 10 laps here? Or has he burned off his tyres, racing for third, racing for fourth? Who will have the advantage when the checkered flag falls?
I have not had math classes for quite a bit of time, but 5 seconds and half a second per lap quicker. That means that in 10 laps in the final lap of the race, he will be at his gearbox. That will be really interesting to see between these two drivers. Another battle that is heating up a little bit is the one between Philip Lake and Jacob Karsowitz, where they're stringing apart a little bit at the moment. It's the battle for P8 that we saw earlier in the race. These drivers have been closing up a little bit. Philip Lake, however, last time around passed, I think, Jacob and is driving away now from his rival.
Well, everyone should have just enough fuel left to get to the end of a race. I mean, there's not much that should be different there. It's all going to come down to tyres, really, and the big concern is how much fresher are Joseph Fabian's tyres. And there's the answer for you, right at the top of your screen. Joseph Fabian, fastest lap of a race.
And more importantly than that, it was 0.8 of a second quicker than Clayton McLeod. So that means that just in like 6 laps or something like that, he will be right in the gearbox of the Guinea. 4 laps to make that move stick for the victory. Also interesting to see is that Tommy Mikkel and Hola, who was just right behind that battle of Joseph and Adam, isn't able to keep up with the blue Formula 1 car. He's just falling back a little bit, almost 2 seconds behind him now. It seems like he has to settle for 3rd place today.
And then Hola probably wondering what could have been, because he's only 6 seconds back of our race leader right now, despite having that big spin early on.
Clayton McLeod is also seeing in front of him a little bit of traffic. That is Jerry Voerkolp in front of him. Jerry, who is currently in P17, 2 laps down. Beautiful Marlboro machine. He will be the next driver who will be lapped by Clayton. Jerry, of course, slowing a little bit down on the exit there, just letting him pass. It's good driving from him. And now in front of Clayton McLeod will be Stefan Henkel, who is the last driver on the elite lap in P12.
Another 0.6 of a second out of Clayton's lead as Joseph Fabian runs a 1:21.6 to Clayton's 1:22.2. The gap was 3.8 seconds at the line that time by. 8 laps left to go when they come around this time by. But of course the other question is, how much is Fabian... I mean, I've got to imagine the answer is hard because he's trying to race the winner down in the closing laps. But how much is he taking out of those tyres right now? How hard is he pushing this car? Will he still have this speed in him in 5 laps time, or is he killing his tyres right now?
The other thing as well is Clayton McLeod isn't driving slow either. Clayton is actually gapping Tommy and Adam in P3 and P4. So the top 2 is actually extending the gap to the rest of the field. It's just that Joseph Fabian has found some incredible speed at this point of the race, just slashing down that lead that Clayton McLeod has. But yeah, the old saying goes, like getting close is one and overtaking is the second thing.
So Clayton McLeod, the Canadian, currently leading this race ahead of Joseph Fabian down there from down under the Australia, New Zealand areas, as this time around he takes yet another 0.6 out. Once again, the lap times are 1:22.2 by Clayton and the 1:21.6 by Joseph. So these two being consistent, and the 0.6 of a second a lap, Fabian would be able to catch McLeod with about 3 or 4 laps left to go. But we've seen Joseph has had no difficulty with running down drivers today. But as you just mentioned, Johan, once he gets there, he's had a bit of difficulty making the pass stick.
And those lap times, from both drivers, but especially Joseph Fabian, that just shows how good of a rhythm he currently is. Because for 3 laps in a row, he managed a 1:21.6. It's a 1:21.64, a 1:21.67, and a 1:21.61. Incredibly consistent driving from Joseph out there. Of course, that's
not going to help him.
Yeah, that's Stefan Henkel. That will lose him a little bit of time. Clayton McLeod is probably happy with this because it's probably the worst point of the track that you can find traffic. Out of level here, he gets the overtake, but that will cost him a little bit of time. Let's see what kind of lap time he does this time around. Yeah, that's a 1:21.9 immediately. Compared to Clayton McLeod's 1:22.1, so there's only 0.2 of a second. But still, even though Joseph Fabian gets held up by traffic, Sam, he still seems to slash down that gap towards Clayton McLeod a little bit. Ooh, bad exit from Joseph there. The exit of Meckets and Beckett's. He had to go through the grass. Don't think he lost too much time there. He could have almost lost it there, putting his wheels on the grass.
Well, we can see the dynamic time at the bottom of our screen is currently 3.3 seconds. It was 2.9 seconds over the line, so Fabian definitely lost a tiny bit. But if he can get his car back under him, he should still have time to run that 71 down. But those little mistakes and the lap traffic are not making his mission any easier.
At the moment, there's not a lot of battles happening out there on track. Clayton McLeod is trying to lap another driver. That's Kevin Kolsche, who's currently driving at P11. He is now the first driver who is lapped. Only 10 drivers left on the lead lap. Sam Winton is the next one. But Sam Winton is quite a bit of time in front of Clayton McLeod, so I think that Sam will stay on the lead lap before the race is over.
Could be a change for 8th in the not too distant future. Jacob Kasowicz, even though he was fast early on during the event, if I recall, he made a pretty early pit stop, whereas Philip Blake did not. Philip Blake's tyres slightly fresher, running back here in 9th place right now and eating into the gap.
Well, Philip Blake, of course, had overtaken Jacob, I think 10 laps ago, something like that. But he actually made a mistake, a little spin, around 3 laps ago. He lost around 7 seconds, and that saw Jacob immediately pass him again. Philip Blake dropping from P8 to P9. But like you say, Sammy, he does have the speed. He's around half a second per lap quicker than Jacob, so he will be trying to close that gap ever more. Talking about closing the gap, Joseph Fabian has closed the gap towards Clayton McLeod under 2 seconds now.
Yeah, and I think that was the lap traffic of Kevin Kolsche, who is now the first car 1 lap down in 11th place. Basically, you know, for every yin there's a yang. Yeah, Fabian got held up by the lap traffic of Stephen Henkel, I believe it was, not too long ago. But this time by Kevin Kolsche, Fabian actually got by him a little bit easier. And that allows him to eat a little bit more into that lead. 1.7 seconds was the gap at the line. And now just 5 laps left to go.
Yeah, and Joseph Fabian once again putting down the quickest lap of the race. A 1:21.3, incredible lap time from him. At the same time, Clayton McLeod is still on the 1:22s. Joseph Fabian, I'm interested to see, because it was so difficult early in the race, Sam, to make an overtake. But if you see this amount of difference in speed, are you actually able to make an overtake then? Or is it still too difficult to make an overtake here in Silverstone?
Well, let's not forget the part that Fabian was really struggling with early on. The part that was really hurting him, in my opinion, Johan, was the fact that he wasn't able to carry a lot of momentum through Maggots and Beckett's with the dirty air on his front wing. And now that the race has unfolded, it appears that the heavy fuel load was not helping there. And as actually the rear end of
sorry, it's Jacob Kersenis, P8. He crashes with lap traffic. That's Larry Krupp. In the Maggott and Beckett section, we go to a replay of that incident. I was following it because Jacob was being run down by Philip Blake. He was being held up by traffic, and he tried to do a very courageous move, so to speak, here on the inside of Maggott and Beckett. Of course, Larry went a little bit wide, and Jacob maybe thought that he was given room there, but disaster struck as both cars collided there.
So an unfortunate end to Jacob's race there in the closing stages of this event. But yeah, the point I was trying to get to, Johan, is I don't think Joseph Fabian, our driver currently running second, I don't think the dirty air in Maggots and Beckett's is going to be hurting him as much anymore in the closing laps of this race, because he has a light fuel load. The car's going to handle better through those twists and turns.
I agree, but the only thing that I would say is if we at the moment Joseph Fabian is the quickest driver on track, but Clayton McLeod is maybe mentally the quickest driver on track. I don't think I've seen him make that many mistakes. While Joseph, of course, had the contact with Tommy and had a little small spin there either. Will that also be affected, that mental aspect? Because that's, of course, extremely important as well. If you only have 1 or 2 laps to make that overtake, and it's just not a normal overtake, it's an overtake for the victory.
And it's an overtake for the victory that would have to come in the final 3 laps of an event. 1.5 seconds was the gap last lap around. This time it's down to 1.1 seconds. Fabian definitely working his way towards being within striking range of that number 71 Ferrari. The drivers in 3rd and 4th are currently running where they started. The drivers in 1st and 2nd, well, they were on the front row, but they were the other way around. Fabian was the fastest car in qualifying. Both of these drivers dropped back a couple positions early on due to their heavier fuel loads contributing to bad starts. Joseph Fabian got involved in a bit more action than Clayton McLeod was. Clayton, however, definitely came out with the advantage after our round of pit stops. It was about 6 seconds at one point, I believe. Now it is just 1. These two definitely the class of the field so far. They are over 10 seconds ahead of everyone else on track. And with just 2 laps left to go, though, who is going to be the one standing on the top step of a podium?
That would be exciting. Joseph Fabian is getting really close now. Just a quick update on another battle in the field. That's the one between Alejandro De Campo and Ian Nest. It's a battle for P5. Alejandro has been running Ian down for the last lap. Last time around he was a second quicker, and there's only a second between the two drivers at the moment, so it would be close between them as well. With only 2 more laps to go. Joseph Fabian going through turn 1 at the moment. 2 more laps to go, 2 more times going through Mackett's and Beckett's. That means that only 2 more times you have the run towards Stowe. That's probably the best overtaking spot, I would say. But there's traffic right in front of them. There's a Michael A. Overlay and Larry Krupp just in front of them. Also in a battle of themselves, and that's gonna hurt them because, of course, it's lap traffic, but it's lap traffic that is fighting.
Yeah, they're about to catch them at a very bad spot here, as a matter of fact. They're coming down the Vale in Club, and these two almost getting side by side, and they're not going to be able to get out of the way of in Club here. Well, okay, Overbay does. And so Overbay's basically yielded his battle with Krupp right now because he lost a lot of time doing that, but it allows the leaders to continue to race. And I'm sorry, I was watching another car going off, not a part of this battle though. Let's keep our eyes on this battle as Krupp does get out of the way, and our 2 leaders have retracted themselves as they come around to start the final lap.
1 more lap to go. 1 more time the drivers will pass each corner in this Silverstone circuit. 1 more lap to win this 39 lap race. Oh, it spins! Joseph, he spins it on the exit of the last corner. Oh wait, it doesn't. It seemed like that because his car has been blinking. I think he just went extremely loose because look at the amount of track position he has lost immediately to Clayton McLeod. That's almost 2 seconds that Clayton is in front of him. So even though he didn't spin, Joseph has lost an incredible amount of time. It will be really difficult for him now to run down this 2-second deficit and try and move for the victory.
Yeah, Clayton McLeod got a bit of a gift right there. Mistake by Joseph Fabian as they come around to start the final lap. Now the driver of that number 71 Ferrari has just got to make sure he doesn't make a mistake of his own. He has over a second lead. Fabian will be trying to do everything he can to reel him back in and force him into a mistake. But I can't imagine McLeod, a driver who has won multiple championships in this series before, will succumb to pressure that easily as they enter the final sector. A bunch of slow speed corners here. Fabian wants to be ambitious. He can always try throwing it in as they get through Brooklands. They come up to Lovefield. It's not going to be enough as long as McLeod doesn't do what Fabian did last lap, and he doesn't. It's going to be close, but it's going to be Clayton's. Clayton McLeod takes the victory here at Silverstone.
The battle behind him, there was the left cars between Michael A. Overbay and Larry Krupp that was decided in the 2 corners before the end when Michael A. Overbay made the overtake stick to Larry Krupp. Another battle that we have at the moment, Ian S. and Alejandro De Campo very close between them, turn 5, only 1 more corner to go. Only 1 more corner to go, but I think that Ian S. has it going towards the last little kink now. Ian S. will come home in P5 and Alejandro De Campo has to settle his incredible recovery race from P17 with a P6 at the end.
Yeah, it was also quite close at the end for the drivers in 3rd and 4th, but Tommy Mikhail was able to hold off less than a second ahead of Adam Trimiluski as they came across the line in that order, 3rd and 4th. We'll give you a full race rundown and be back with some driver interviews here on the Global SimRacing Channel for the Batteries Not Included Championship. Don't go away.
But yeah, I'm expecting better race at Nürburgring, but of course I don't know if others are better there too, so I'm going to see how it goes.
All right. Well, thank you, Tommy and Hola, for coming to talk to us with the third place finish. And Johan, you have called up with our race winner.
Yeah, Clayton McLeod, he's wiping the champagne off his face, I think, as we speak. Clayton, that was a great drive from you winning this race. You must be very happy to start the season like this.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a really fun race.
It was really close with you at the end with Joseph. How did it look like from your point of view? Were you actually confident that you would beat Joseph out in the end? Did you have some ideas of how to deal with him defensively in the final laps?
Well, we seem to kind of have the same pace when we're both doing what we're supposed to be doing. And then I think kind of what both of us just started making little mistakes here and there. And I just lucked out with traffic once, I think, and just maybe made one or two less mistakes. That was probably about it. It wasn't easy to stay ahead of him.
Yeah, well, you did manage so in the end. And the only thing that I would say that didn't go that well in your race, of course, relatively speaking, was your start, because you qualified well in P2 and you immediately went to P4. Was there a particular reason for that? Was it, for example, dirty sides or just not a good launch, or maybe that you had a heavier fuel load compared to other drivers?
Oh man, Philip Blake can attest to this. I've been complaining about my own starts in that car for about a year now. We tried racing this car in a league about a year and a half ago for about 2 seasons, and every time I would complain about my own starts. I think ever since when this car was still official, ever since they changed the clutch behavior, I've just been having trouble getting the thing going.
I see. Well, in the end, you managed to recover your bad start and you actually won the race. Just want to look forward with you towards the rest of the season, because we had Silverstone today. Is there any particular track that you're looking forward to this season? One that you're really thinking like, oh, this is a track that I will shine.
Well, I'm not super picky about tracks. The only thing I'm not looking forward to is Coda. I'm in that rather large crowd that just hates that track. I know some people like it, but I'm not among them. I'll tolerate it, but besides that, I'm kind of happy to race almost anywhere.
Okay, well, very good. Well, at least you have 11 good tracks left of that. Congratulations, at least, with winning one of those tracks. Clayton McLeod, our victor today.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And thanks everybody for coming out. Hope we have a good season. See you guys.
That was Clayton McLeod, who of course won the race today. Now, in the meantime, Sam, you have caught up with another driver on the podium today.
Yeah, Joseph Fabian, who finished second. And boy, Joseph, you were pretty much all race long. There was someone out there you were trying to pass.
Yeah, hey guys. Yeah, it was a very action-packed race for me. Especially, I made a few mistakes, which put me in a position where I had to make quite a few battles, I guess you could say. And racing this car, you realize without DRS, especially around a track like this, that getting past isn't going to be very easy for sure.
Now, we need to apologize to Tommy and Hola. And I'm saying we, the guys at GSRC, do. He came in here to talk a moment ago. We were having some audio issues. We'll tell our viewers what he said about the incident, as he wants to go back and take a look at it before he says anything about it. Joseph, you, of course, were the other driver involved in that bit of contact there while racing for the lead. How did you see it?
I think it's... I had a very quick look at it, and I think it was an unlucky combination of there's a lag contact. I don't know if he was a bit slower through that corner than I expected. I don't know whether that was my mistake or whether he made a small mistake. But yeah, I had been in that section very close to him in previous laps and got away with it. And maybe I lost a bit of track of where my front wing was, or maybe there was a bit of lag contact that caused some problems there. I know I've heard a bit of a iffy connection, so it's possible that, or maybe I just hit him. I don't think I did anything too bad, but it was very tight.
Now, you played a similar strategy to Clayton, where you went long in the first stint of a race before you made your pit stop, and of course that heavy fuel load hurt you off the line. It was Tommy Unholu led off into the first corner, probably partly due to that lighter fuel load. Do you think you still had the best strategy out there today, or with hindsight, do you think you should have fueled it up a little bit lighter for the first stint?
No, I don't think it was the fuel. I mean, that I haven't done much testing in this car in many years, and it's always been a tough car to start with. And I did a few test starts. My very last test start in that qualifying session, I put it in the wall. So I was quite hesitant with my start, and I paid the price. I wasn't really surprised that I got past. To be honest, I thought I might have lost more than one place on the start. Ultimately, my strategy, I knew from previous experience in this car that you gain so much time if you can put a few extra laps out of fuel and just hold on to that position. And because it's so hard to pass, of course, you don't actually necessarily lose positions if you add in extra fuel on the start. Ultimately, Clayton, I think, went 1 or 2 laps longer, and if in hindsight, of course, if I knew exactly how far he was going, I would probably tried to go one further than him, but that didn't happen. And ultimately, I think that would have been the easiest way to get past in that race for sure.
All right. Well, thanks for coming to talk to us, Joseph. Thanks for putting on a great show out there today. You were definitely fun to watch. Shame, of course, for you didn't bring home the winner's trophy. But we got 11 more rounds. I'm sure you'll get a couple before the season is over.
Yeah, thanks, guys. And quickly, thanks to Clayton and you guys for organising this. It's a great series. Cheers.
So that was our second place finisher, Joseph Fabian. We got one more driver here for post-race interviews, finishing in 7th position. Johan, you've called up with Reed Miller.
Yeah, exactly, Reed. Welcome to the booth. Now, the thing that I want to talk with you about is that battle in the middle of the race. It was you. Who else was there? It was Philip Lake, Sam Winton, Dave Peterson. It was a very heavy battle. How did you enjoy that? Did you actually miss something like DRS, or was it actually doable to try and overtake in this car?
It was pretty difficult to overtake, so I was just trying to be patient and wait for my spots. I'm not really used to DRS or anything, so this is it was really fun out there.
Well, in the end, your patience paid off because of all of those drivers. You're the one who finished the most in front, P7 in the end. Now, you started P13, you finished P7. Was it just that you grew in the race, you really got into a rhythm, or did you have like a little mistake in qualifying?
I made the mistake of tinkering with my qualifying setup right before the race, and it didn't feel very good. So I had to. I ran my race pace pretty much what I expected to.
Very good. Well, we are now done with Silverstone. We're looking towards next week when we go to Germany, when we go to the Nürburgring. How are you liking that track? Is it a track that you also like? Do you think that you have a good chance to have another good result there?
I think so. I pretty much like every track, so I'm looking forward to everywhere we race.
Very good. Well, you're in for a good season then, because we have a lot of tracks coming up in the coming weeks. Thank you for talking with us. That was Reed Miller coming home today in P7.
All right, so with that is the first of 12 rounds for this championship in the books, Johan. Great to hear and see these, I'm not going to call them old F1 cars, only 9 years old, but, not exactly modern day anymore F1 cars screaming around this Silverstone circuit once again.
Yeah, especially, and just look at the gap between Clayton McLeod and Joseph Fabian once they went over the finish line. 0.2 seconds between P1 and P2. If the whole season is going to be like this, I think we're up for a cracking championship.
And this wouldn't be possible without some help on our end. We would like to thank our race winner, actually, Clayton McLeod, as well as all of the organisers and the competitors of the Batteries Not Included Championship, for coming out this morning and putting on a fantastic show. We would also like to thank all of the companies that provide the software and hardware that we use during our broadcasts, and there you can see them all listed on your screen. Additional thanks goes out to Eric Ekholm and June Lalonde who provide us with our music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of their great work. Thanks to the team today, Johan, Sean and Dougie, as well as Stefan Schlasser, who was helping us out behind the scenes there. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, you can visit us at globalsimracingchannel.com. We're also on social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at facebook.com/globalsimracingchannel, and Instagram at GSRC_gram. All of the upcoming races for our other series are listed on your screen, so check those out. Mark them down on your calendar and don't miss another second of exciting racing action. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.